so much. I'm really excited to be here today. And I would like to thank Darabin Council for organizing and putting together such an amazing program with, a huge lineup. Also, I would like to thank you and your colleagues for this amazing achievement, really. Leaders aren't born, they are made, and leadership is a continuous journey. Good afternoon and welcome. As with every other learning, when it comes to leadership, we can never say we learned or we know everything. Even for the most experienced leaders, the current situation is a tremendous challenge because it is likely that they have never faced one like this before. The purpose of this webinar is to provide you with some tools and insights into your role as a leader during difficult times. So, today's topics. This session will be both explorative and reflective. And at the end, you will walk away with some clarity on how you can adjust your leadership approach to help your team and even your family during these tough times. Our biggest cost in any organization is the employees. And rightly so when you consider that they are also the biggest asset, the backbone of the business. Wouldn't you agree? So it makes sense to look at how we can bring the best out of our team members, our employees, through effective leadership. And yet, you would agree when I say that organizations don't spend enough time and resources, as in funding, in equipping leaders with the tools and skills necessary to effectively lead and manage their biggest asset, which is the workforce. It just doesn't make sense. There is also this misconception around that if you are good at your technical job, you will also be automatically good at leading people. When things are going well, that might be easier, but when a crisis hits, like the ones that we have right now, this is when the role of a leader can become really tough, especially if you have never had a formal leadership training, coaching, or mentoring. So for that purpose, our today's topics are one, what people need from you as a leader during difficult times. And the reason I chose that is that normally people ask themselves, what should I do next? What should I, bring to the table today? So people normally think from their own perspective. This question it changes the perspective. So what people need from you as a leader. I hope that creates some insight. The second topic is how to retain talent that will support your business continuity plan. And building upon that will be how to craft your key message that will help your business move forward. Before we start, I would like to look at the distinction between leadership and management, because very often they are used interchangeably. They are very distinct, and if you have people reporting to you, you have to be both. So it's not one is better or one is more important than the other. If you are in a management role, in a leadership role, you have to be both. So let's have a look at leadership and management and the three key differences. Number one is counting value versus creating value. So management is about counting value in terms of reporting, in terms of the hours, the outcomes, sales figures, organized shifts. Generally speaking, ensure the operations are running smoothly. Leadership focuses on creating value. That means developing your team members, giving them opportunities to grow. The next one is circles of power versus circles of influence. Managers have subordinates, and through that dynamic, they create compliance by setting rules for the functioning of the departments or the organization, and therewith they create circles of power. Leaders have followers, and by that they create circles of influence. The quickest way to find out if you have a circle of influence is to think about the number of people outside your reporting hierarchy who come to you for advice. So the more people obviously do that, the more likely is that you are perceived as a leader. And last but not least, managing work versus leading people. Management is about controlling a set of resources or entities to accomplish a goal or an output. That includes people, materials, equipment, and as a manager, you need to manage that set of resources in order, to have an output. Leadership, on the other hand, refers to an individual's ability to influence, motivate, and enable others to contribute towards the organizational success. The role of the manager is, bestowed upon you when you are promoted in that management role. However, to be seen as a leader, you need to earn that right to lead, and we'll be talking about that a bit later on. A reflection for you to be, as we tend to be more towards one or towards the other, as being more like our comfort zone. Think about, when do you need to be a manager and when do you need to be a leader? And it's no right or wrong. It's about what the situation calls for. So before we start, because we are talking about leadership in during difficult times, let's have a look what is currently happening. Where are we now, and what challenges are we facing together? There is no understatement to say that we have never faced a bigger economical challenge that is outside our direct influence. The effect is that some businesses have reduced or even stopped their activity temporarily, or some of them for good. Some others were so lucky to be able to move their activity to working from home, and some other really lucky ones were the winners from the situations, such as suppliers to medical industry, food chain supply, online stores like Kogan reported 100% revenue increase. And even companies in the home furnishing industries like Adair's, they reported an increase of 19%. No matter in which industry you are, leadership in the current situation needs a different approach. So, where are we now? Economical downturn that affects businesses and individuals. With that, we experience a high level of uncertainty and anxiety. And with that, increased mental health issues. And as leaders, we definitely need to be aware of all that when we manage and we lead our people. A couple of weeks ago, in another leadership program also run by the Durban Council, we were talking about creative leadership. This is absolutely a situation that calls for creative leadership. So, let's have a look at what do your team members need from you during difficult times? Leadership scholars defined many different leadership styles that can be used concurrently at different points in times. What we undoubtedly need right now from leaders is from them to lead from the front. What does it mean? When there is no unbeaten path, we have a situation that we have never been confronted with before. To go ahead and show us the path, show us how it's done, to show people that it's safe to go on that path. So, for example, businesses who work directly with the public had to introduce new safety procedures. They had to show how these are done. New ways of doing things, working from home. We have different practices, different procedures, new behaviors, like the behaviors and the practices of having online meetings, new technology that comes with that you use in your business to connect with each other. In sales and customer service, we always say that to be successful, you need to understand what your customers need and give them exactly that. Leading from the front is the same. And what people need right now, what they lost as the crisis hit, are two things: certainty and connection. And they are both affecting people's well-being and ultimately their mental health. These are two basic human needs that now have been taken away from most of us, and it's up to you as a leader to help your team members and your family to regain some of them. This crisis has affected our lives tremendously, and the past 7 months has shown us that we can't predict what's going to happen next. When is the economy going to reopen? When can we trade again? Do we still have our jobs? Some people had to be stood down for this entire time. Can we cover our fixed costs? So there is a lot of uncertainty, and your role as a leader is to provide some certainty for your team members. And the second one, connection. It's nothing new if I say we are meant to live in groups in which we have found safety since the cave time. But through the lockdown, we lost that. Again, as leaders, it's your role to provide a platform and the conditions for your people to remain connected or to maintain that connection with you and among themselves. Let's have a look at actually how to provide certainty and connection during difficult times. And after that, we'll be looking at to see whether you have some questions or some comments. So number one, it will be in times where there are many things outside of our control, is to control the controllables. So what is it that we can control? In the past, we had, let's say, weekly team meetings. And outside of those meetings, we were also in each other's presence on a daily basis in the office, let's say. A new routine that many businesses have established is a daily team meeting. Even if it's just 10, 15 minutes long, you need that daily contact and obviously visual contact through these kind of platforms like WebEx or Zoom to maintain that connection. we have new routines, new rhythms and rituals that we need in order to have that sense of control, and which we also control. The second one, which is very important, one of the most important things, in my opinion, when it comes to leadership, is trust. If you have it, it's time to strengthen it. If you don't have it, it's time to create it. So trust is like a jar of pebbles. It's built over time. Every time you do something to strengthen it, you add to the pebbles in the jar. What I would like to do is to have a quick look at the trust formula. I can talk a whole day on trust. Unfortunately, we don't have the time today, so but at the end, if we have time and if you have further questions, I can go further into the trust formula and how we gain trust. However, for now, I would like to quickly have a look at the trust formula. So C stands for credibility. It's about credential. It's about demonstrated capability and competency of leading a team. And there is also an emotional factor, is do your team members feel and believe that you are telling the truth? Do you give them the confidence? So this is obviously built up during a period of time. R stands for reliability. It's the consistency of your actions. Your team members trust you that you will do what you said, and you also need to demonstrate a good track record for that. Intimacy is about feeling the emotional security in dealing with you, the connection that you have. How safe do they feel sharing things with you that matter to them a great deal? So all that summed up is detracted by the self-orientation. What is the perception of people that perhaps you are self-oriented, you have your own agenda? So obviously the less self-centered you are perceived to be, the higher your trustworthiness is. So this is actually only half of the trust, because this is from their perspective, how much people trust you, but trust goes both ways. So the other half is how much do you trust your team? And this is an opportunity for you to think about how can you see this situation as an opportunity. Where is the silver lining? We talked about a few industries that have actually seen an increase in their activity. So they are obviously the winners. Not there is any winner in this situation, but obviously with that it comes an increase in their business activity. However, you don't need to be alone. You can invite your team members to actually contribute with their opinion, with their ideas, and to together with them to find what are the opportunities for us in this situation. So when you obviously invite them to contribute, they gain a sense of empowering, and it's an empowering experience. And at the same time, it strengthens the connection with you, and obviously it's a win-win scenario. For example, someone mentioned before, Chris, I think, that they have seen an increase in their activity. It's not only business, it could be community services that now are more in demand than in the past. It could be creating an online channel for your business. It could be upskilling your workforce. In the past, when I was talking with my clients and with other business owners, they were saying, oh my God, right now I don't know where I can fit this training because we are so busy. Well, if you are not that busy during this time, it's the best time to upskill your workforce. And if you would like to see what other opportunities to upskilling your workforce are out there, we can provide you with some links, because there are many organizations that now they are providing actually their services, their courses for free. So let's move on. How to how to retain talent that will support your business continuity plan. Years ago, after the GFC that we were so lucky not to feel that much in Australia, I was talking with a client who was saying that his US business partner had it so much better, as his employees were behaving because they were afraid of losing their job. So I asked him, do you want to have employees who stay because they don't have any other options? Or do you want employees who are engaged and really want to work for you? He thought that was very insightful. Our current situation is similar. Are your team members hanging around just until the crisis is over? Some businesses had to let some people go, so they retained only the best performers. Some others had to employ more, but regardless where you're at, your business continuity plan depends on you retaining your best talent, perhaps now more than ever. One thing is sure, at the end of this crisis, people will remember one thing: how you made them feel during this time. Have you made them feel better, more certain, more connected? Have you uplifted them? That's up to you. And for those of you who don't know who Maya Angelou is, she is a human rights activist, an American human rights activist and a poet. She died a few years ago. Obviously, she's from the old generation who had to fight for the rights of women and the rights of people of color. So another opportunity for reflection for you is, how do I show up as a leader in times of crisis? At the end, we'll have some time to talk about this reflection questions. But for now, if you perhaps would like to write them down or think about them as we go through the content. So it's certain, something is certain, that right now we experience not business as usual. And as we do that, we need to look at the priorities. We cannot, because it's not business as usual, we cannot act as if it would be business as usual. And also we cannot expect or demand our people to produce the same results as during business as usual times. Back in March, when it all started, we recorded actually an increase in the working from home productivity. But soon after that, when the sense of uncertainty, fear, disconnection hit home, and with that, a decline in mental health, the productivity actually plummeted. Recently, Jill Klein, professor at the Melbourne Business School, shared that, and I quote, "Leaders need to be very aware of that extra strain that their employees are under as we go through COVID-19. If the leaders are not looking out for them, their employees could be harmed as we go through this pandemic." So she was also asserting that being stuck at home, employees are not able to be as productive as during normal times, and they cannot bear the brunt of this pandemic on your business. This is not what we are talking about right now, is not the normal one day from home scenario where people can be more productive on that day, and which improves the employee experience and therefore their satisfaction. This is a scenario where people are stuck at home 24/7, having to homeschool their children, having to mind toddlers, some of them being single parents, some other people live alone. So there are so many challenges that people are currently facing in their working environment. There is no boundary to the home life. So being in isolation, there is no more work-life separation, and you really need to take that into consideration when it comes to leadership, your leadership style, your leadership approach, as well as your management approach. So one really important thing that you need to bear in mind and is that this crisis won't last forever, and you need to think of, what do I need to do now to ensure business continuity by retaining talented employees? How do I need to treat them? What do they need from me? What key message do they need to hear from me? So what you can do right now is get clear on priorities. What are your priorities right now that will get you through this time? What is essential and what is not? And to communicate that very clearly with your employees. So what do you need them to work on in order to ensure business continuity? And with that, what can you take off their plate for the moment? That's really important. And I don't know if many businesses think of this, of taking actually something off employees' plate during this time. So as leaders, what you need to do is to focus on what's your biggest priority for the business and ensure that that priority gets done. It's not business as usual. Priorities have shifted. And for some is, as we talked about before, for some is survival, for others is adapting, and for some others is ensuring that they are taking advantage of the opportunities that they are presented with. So, last but not least, how to craft your key message that will help your business move forward. Now, it comes down to communication, and we know how important communication is, especially during difficult times. Again, people will forget what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. Now, why is this important? Because how you made them feel will determine what they will do, the actions they will take or not take. Will they go above and beyond? Or when it comes to thinking outside the box, they will say, this is not my job. Will they be loyal to your business? Or will they leave at the next opportunity? And we know that employee attrition is very expensive. Now, research in leadership has shifted the focus from people serving leaders to leaders serving people. So the question that you need to ask yourself now, more important than ever, is what can you do for them so they can do their best they can? A lot of research in well-being and mental health tells us that experience positive emotion while going through adversity is very important. So you need to try and find opportunities, even through remote work or remote meetings, to share love or support one another. And we will now be looking at something specific that you can do to enforce or to convey that positive and consistent communication. So one is weekly huddles. So what does it mean? Weekly huddles not focused on business, but dedicated purely to develop the relationship with one another. We talked at the beginning about how the situation took away the connection. We are isolated, so therefore we are missing that daily interaction. This is a platform where there can be a facilitated interaction where people can share, what's on their heart, what's on their mind, a recent experience or a success story. Again, purely created to reconnect with each other. To create more structure within these weekly huddles, you could also have something like the question of the week that everyone answers. Or you can also rotate the chairing of the meeting so everyone has a turn in. We were talking about developing leaders and developing people. This is one way in which you also can do that. When everyone has a turn, they have a turn at chairing it, and this way they feel empowered and motivated. What else can you do during the weekly huddles? Could be sharing tips, how to stay organized, how to stay healthy. This is a positive experience, and create connection helps people overcome tough times. We talked before about daily meetings. So these are the weekly team meetings that now need to take place daily. And also, let's not forget the one-on-ones that normally every team leader or manager or any kind of leader would have to with their people to connect with them on a regular basis. I would even emphasize that they are more important now than ever. Even, you could see that also as a wellness check to see how they are going emotionally, how they are going as a person, not only in terms of performance. And a bonus that comes with that is that you that way can strengthen that relationship with them on an individual level. And the third point that I would like to make is what went well exercise. This is a very simple yet very effective exercise that you can do with your employees in order to improve their resilience and their morale. Resilience is really important during this time, and it's not, you cannot over communicate that. So what went well exercise is at the end of each day, think of 3 things that went well and why, and write those down. Write these 3 things down. Why this exercise is simple but effective? Our brain is designed to pay more attention to dangerous or negative things because we had to be able to react to these things very quickly in order to survive. Since cave time, our brain hasn't changed. So that means that in our daily lives, we still pay more attention to the negatives, to the threatening things rather than to the positive ones. So what this exercise helps us do is to get in the habit of noticing positive things and remembering them. if you know that at the end of the day, you are going to have to come up with these 3 positive things, what you're going to do is to start looking for them throughout the day. And therefore, this exercise will help us experience more positive emotions and notice the positives in our lives. Have you heard before of this kind of exercise? If yes, please, oh, sorry. Please write that in the chat box. I would like to see whether you have heard of this exercise or perhaps you have practiced it before. What else you can do? How can you communicate during difficult times? Be honest and candid. People are hungry for authentic leadership. Without being authentic, you cannot create genuine relationships with your team members. Now, we are all in the same boat, really. You are affected as well by the lack of certainty or the lack of connection. And that's okay. It's okay to communicate exactly that. But also what you can do to project some sense of connection and some sense of certainty is to say, I don't know what's going to be next week. I don't know what's going to be even tomorrow. But what I know is that I will be working on XYZ to ensure that when this is over, we can restart again. So this is the kind of communication you can still have even if you are in the same boat as everyone else. And lastly, clear expectations that will also give an additional sense of certainty. We talked about priorities. You can communicate clearly what are the new priorities and be clear on the expectations on your team members coming out of these new priorities. What kind of autonomy are you willing to give your employee that they didn't have before? So for example, now with working from home, being mindful that people have toddlers perhaps at home, have kids that they need to homeschool. Do you give them, are you in a position to be able to give them more autonomy so they can set their own hours around what's happening at home? And let them know that this is okay, not that they have to kind of second guess themselves. And changes, for example, with every change in our external circumstances, it's very important to communicate with your team members what actually means for us at work. So, for example, the state of disaster was supposed to be finished today at 2 p.m. However, that has been extended until the 13th. So this is a time where you can communicate with your team members to say, what does this mean for you? What does this mean for us? And what's next? So, let's not forget the employees who have been stood down. And what I will be sharing with you next is actually a real example. A nurse who has been stood down has just received this care pack or friendship pack. Obviously, the names and details have been removed, but I thought this was such an amazing example that I needed to share with you today. And this is the message that she received in that note that you can see on the picture. A marble for when you lose yours. Yep. Tea, coffee, and a snack to help you relax and remember the good times and think of those yet to come. Absolutely. Gum to remind you that a team sticks together. Absolutely. My favorite though is the last one. puzzle piece to let you know that our family is incomplete without you. Bring it with you in the first week so we can be whole again. It's absolutely amazing. It's so heartwarming, and it shows again that if you have employees, team members who you had to stand down, think of them. It's really not about the cost. If you look at this care pack, how much could have costed to put it together? Perhaps even the shipping was more expensive, but such a small investment, such a small, you know, thought has a huge, an absolute huge impact on the person who receives it. So I see there are more comments in the chat. Meaningful connection, I love it. Yes. All right. So what I would like to do is to recap what we have looked at today. So today we examined the difference between the leadership and management, and when we need to be one or the other. Now you can definitely be a leader without having a management role. So you can be a leader at any time. You can be a leader in your community. You can be a leader within your family or extended family. So just because you don't have at work people who report to you, it doesn't mean that you cannot be one. We look at what your team members need from you during these difficult times. So they need from you to lead from the front, to show the way. They need from you certainty and connection, as they lost a lot of that during this time. We looked at how you can provide those to your team. We also looked at how to retain your best talent by shifting to your biggest priority instead of business as usual, and how you can take some off their plate at the moment. And last but not least, what your communication should look like during these difficult times. Absolutely needs to emphasize the positives, because the negatives always outweigh the positives, because we always look for the negatives. So we need to find ways in which we emphasize and we make the positive moments remarkable, and when we can remember them. Now, what I would like to show you is two questions, two reflective questions that perhaps have a look, and if we have the time to discuss them, I would really encourage you to do that. But this is definitely something you can take away and reflect as we go through these tough times and in moving forward, because this is perhaps not the only difficult time that your organization or your team members or your family is going to go through. It could be a reorganization that that brings a lot of uncertainty. It could be a merger, an acquisition, and so forth. So what kind of leader do I need to be today? This is a question that you can ask yourself many times, even when you face new situations or new challenges. What kind of leader do I need to be today? So it's about being. Is it a compassionate leader? Is it a supportive leader? Is it one who leads from the front and shows the way? Is it a trusting, empathetic leader? And the second question that I would like to leave with you today as a takeaway is, what do I need to do today to step up as a leader in during difficult times. So one is about being, how do I need to be, what kind of leader do I need to be, and the second one is about doing, about actions. What do I need to do today? How do I provide certainty? What do I need to implement to strengthen the connection with my team during a time when we are apart? So, with that, I would like to look at key takeaways, what you are taking away from this session today, and to see what other questions do you have.